All right. All right, UFC Vegas 46, top 10 matchup in flyweights. We have number 5, Brandon Royval versus number 7, Rogerio Bontorin. Our question for this matchup is Royval has kind of been in a slump of late, kind of some bad luck. Lost against Pantoja, lost against Moreno. Bontorin won his last fight against Matt Schnell, but then he lost a couple before that, most notably to Kai Kara-France on a buzzer-beating knockout to end the first round. Which guy can separate themselves and kind of start making some headway to get close to like that number 1 contention status? Or are either these guys one of those guys that you can kind of see maybe doing that? Let us know. My answer to that, I really like Royval. Those 2 losses were kind of tough to see because I think he was pretty close to getting close to contention status, getting to contention status, and then again just some tough luck. And then Bontorin had tough luck against Kai Kara-France because from what I'm remembering, that first round was kind of in his favor, and then he just got knocked out at the end. He's since recovered and gotten a victory. I like Royval. I want to say Royval is who I can see separating himself, but I think it might be Bontorin. What do you think?
I think it'll be Royval. Again, his last 2 losses were significant, but not because of how steep the competition was. Pantoja had fought Figueiredo. He's fought Askarov. Pantoja's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he beat Manel Kape.
He's also beat Moreno.
Yeah, well, yeah. See, and that's kind of making it more solidified in my brain of like, I think out of the 2 guys, Royval will separate himself. But that's not to say Bontorin's a chump either. Like, he's not. So the potential here is, it can go either way. I think Royval is going to have the thirst more, put it to that way. I think he's going to be hungrier for it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this would be like kind of my dark horse picked for a potential fight of the night. Obviously, the main event itself has that potential. You have a very enticing matchup there, but I think this one could possibly even steal the show. These flyweights sometimes put up some very exciting fights, and I think both of these guys are exciting fighters. For Royval, 12 wins. Of those 12 wins, 11 are by finish, 8 via submission, and for Bontorin, 17 wins, 14 finishes, 11 of them being by submission. So both guys have that finishing ability, clearly. We'll talk about the lines a little bit later. We'll talk about where the over-under is set at. Well, let's kind of take a look at what we said. We already mentioned with Royval, right? You had those 2 losses against Pantoja, who's possibly going to be next in line to fight the winner of Moreno Figueiredo. We don't know. And then a loss to the current champion Moreno. And then before that, he had beat Kai Kara-France, we just mentioned. Bontorin had lost to, and now Kai is possibly in a position to almost be fighting for a belt.
Maybe I skipped over this, but he's also beaten Tim Elliott.
Yeah, that was his UFC debut. So to fight a guy who is as seasoned as Tim Elliott, and look at how quickly all of this has been. By the way,
So
Royval is 2-2, which again on paper isn't the shiniest looking record, but I didn't realize it had only been not even 2 years that he's been in the UFC. So I would make this comparison with Royval in this sense. So when we did our video against for the Lewis card, Derek Lewis and Chris Dawkins card, we broke down Charles Jourdain versus Andre Ewell, and I was saying Charles's record of 2-3-1 at that time in the UFC was like not really indicative of the fighter that he was, in my opinion. I would say the same thing here about Royval. 2-2. If you just look at it on a piece of paper, like, all right, whatever, it's not really anything. I think it's a misleading 2-2.
Yeah.
Again, we've said it already. The 2 losses are against the stiffest of competition, and the 2 wins, honestly, are against pretty good competition too. This actually, the more I think about it, this is a pretty crazy first 4 fights to happen in the UFC.
Are you changing your mind? Is that what's happening?
I'm kind of almost walking myself into it, huh? Because as I'm saying, I'm looking at this list of 4 guys where I'm like, wait, holy crap, it's a pretty tough first 4 to have. So I don't know. My heart is picking Royval, but I don't know. I'm not going to be surprised if he wins by any means. But
Cub Swanson stabbed me in the heart the other day, man.
He
So
did, yeah,
I don't know if I should follow my heart anymore.
So do you have anything to kind of add on Royval beyond that? I mean, Oh, it's pretty
No,
tough.
not specifically on Royval, but to your point about this being a dark horse candidate for fight of the night. I mean, yeah, dude, because I think they're both going to be guns blazing. They have to be. They have to separate themselves. That was the point of our question initially.
Yeah,
Somebody has to separate themselves. So I think they know that, and I think that you're going to get a banger out of the fight because of that.
I agree. And then just kind of quickly go through Bontorin again. Like we mentioned, of the 17 wins, 14 are by finish, 11 by submission. Both of these guys, a lot more submissions than knockouts. And you see it there. So he beat Matt Schnell. He lost to Kai France, lost to Ray Borg. He has a win over Julian Paiva, who we just saw lose to O'Malley, but is very well respected. He was fighting at 125, moved up to 135 to fight O'Malley. Magomed Bubilov and Gustavo Gabriel was his. He won. He got a contract from Dana White Contender Series Brazil by beating Gustavo Gabriel. So 4-2 for him in the UFC. So again, I don't know. 17-3 is a pretty nice record, man. How old is he? 29 and have 20 professional fights. Pretty nice. Both guys have approximately the same number of fights. This is phenomenal matchmaking. Honestly, the more we're talking about this, I'm really, really happy with what the UFC brass did with this matchup. I almost don't want to see anyone lose because it's going to kind of suck either way. I really like both of these guys.
Just take it to a draw or what, man?
Maybe, dude. These flyweights fight to draws, man. Oscar Moreno. I think Moreno has 2 draws. Figueiredo obviously having one of them. Maybe.
It's such a competitive
so let's kind of look
division,
at,
dude. It's honestly nuts. Yeah.
So if we look at what we have the lines set at, well, not we, but what the lines are set at. Currently, Royval is at minus 170 and plus 145 from Bontorin. I think it's a little too inflated in favor of Royval. I'm not just saying that because I said I think Bontorin will win, but just again looking at it from taking a step back, looking at it, I think we just talked about extensively how close we think this should be matched up. I think the absolute most that would be palatable for me in favor of Royval would be minus 140, but I would honestly be more comfortable around minus 130, placing Bontorin around plus 110.
Yeah, I think I have the same feeling as you. I'm gonna take this a step further though and say I could see this being a pick'em. That'd be for a better. That'd be really exciting, man. Just turn it into a pick'em. Set it at 105.
Again, I kind of wonder here what are the odds makers seeing here where maybe they're putting some good weight in the 2 losses that Royval had being against those 2 guys, being against Pantoja, being against Moreno versus Bontorin. He beat a ranked guy in Matt Schnell, but it was Matt Schnell versus losing to.
My guess.
I don't know. I'm trying to
this.
Make sense of it.
I'm guessing it's this. I don't know why, but I'm guessing it's the Kai Kara loss that's setting him that far as an underdog. I don't know, man. They're weird. I'd love to interview one of these odds makers actually, because it'd be fascinating to get in their head. Why do you guys set it the way you said it? Sometimes it doesn't make sense, and to your point, this one doesn't make sense. But looking at this is the only fight I could see that you'd be like, okay, that's why it got set the way it did.
Possibly. And the over-under is set at 2.5 with the under being minus 160, the over being plus 135. And that I think kind of makes sense given we just discussed, right? Both guys have a very high finish rate. Royval has only won once via decision, and for Bontorin only 3 times. And they both have 11 out of 12 for Royval and 14 out of 17 for Bontorin. The 2.5 under 2.5 makes sense to me, but minus 160 it's a little steep for me. But I wouldn't say it's a bad value. I'd like to maybe see that closer to that 150, 145 mark perhaps. But again, look at for Royval, even though those last 2 fights were losses, they were under 2.5. The Kai Kara France was under 2.5. I guess it makes more sense because of Royval being the favorite. We talked about this in the Cater video where sometimes that money line leads you into where that over-under is placed. So of the 4 fights in the UFC, they've all gone under 2.5 for Royval. And given that he's the favorite, I guess that's why we're seeing the under there being as big of a favorite, I guess, as it is, because he hasn't even seen he hasn't seen the third round in the UFC. Isn't that crazy? Every fight for Royval, all four have ended in the second at the furthest in the second round. So that kind of makes sense. I think the under is a good pick. Minus 160, slightly inflated, but again, I don't think it's bad value.
I mean, I'm gonna have a hot take here and say that I see this one going on the over. Not because of Man, I cannot speak today. Not because Royval doesn't have the potential, but because I think barring a freak overhand right, you know what I mean? I think Bontorin's gonna display some chin. He's been knocked out before, so that's not to
Just
say
once.
that it's not possible. Just once for sure,
Yeah.
but Royval's been submitted and he's been TKO'd, so there's that too. So actually, when you think about it, yeah, I mean maybe it is the under that's the logical play, but I'm gonna go ahead and say the over because I'm a crazy guy. So Royval on the over.
Royval on the over. I'm gonna take the under, but I don't know who to pick. My heart says Royval, but for whatever reason, there's something that I'm feeling that Bontorin might get this W. In the event that Royval loses, I do hope the UFC doesn't get rid of him. So I know 2-3 isn't very nice, but I don't know. I'm just saying sometimes they make some harsh decisions. I don't think this one would be one of them, but just
could they get rid so how long is the typical contract when you're in?
It kind of varies. It varies on the fighter. I mean, so this would be his fifth fight. So I don't know. I don't know if he's signing shorter deals, if he has a longer deal. Like, for example, Piotr Jan just signed a 6-fight deal. So I think those more established guys are the ones that we see getting some of those lengthier deals. Like Dustin Poirier, for example, he's in an 8-fight deal right now. So it just kind of depends. But I don't know. So I say Bontorin on the under. I'm more confident on the under versus the pick of Bontorin. I could honestly see the opposite of both of those things happening though, because like I said, for this to be fight of the night, possibly you gotta get some fight. You have to have rounds.
Yeah. So
it wouldn't surprise me if this does go to the distance. Though, honestly, I could see a possible war blooming here, but I could also see them finishing it pretty quick. I don't know. This fight can go any direction. I just don't think it'll be a disappointment regardless, and I hope I don't jinx it.
Well, fingers crossed, man, because I definitely want to see this, regardless of what the betting odds were, but I want to see this go to a decision just because I think it's going to be a banger too, man, and I want to get as much. You
want to get as much out of it as you can.
Yeah.
So to recap, let us know, number one, who you guys think is going to be the victor. Will it be Royval? Will it be Bontorin? How's it going to happen? Over, under? And then let us know in terms of that initial question, which of these two guys kind of is going to be able to separate themselves, kind of goes in line with who you think is going to win. But in addition to winning, which guy is kind of going to maybe pave their path a little more